Hey guys, Lewis here, and in today's video, I'm going to do a review of Pimsleur Spanish. So it's a Pimsleur Spanish review. Specifically, I'm going to use my experience of multiple years of learning multiple languages like English, like Japanese, like Italian, and also my experience just failing at learning some languages like German and Spanish, actually. And so I'm using that experience as well as my experience, seeing a lot of people trying to learn languages and actually failing. A lot of people, most people who try to learn a language actually fail. But I'm going to use that experience to evaluate how effective Pimsleur Spanish is, and specifically, I'm going to answer three questions, which are: number one, is Pimsleur Spanish actually effective? That is, are you going to become fluent in Spanish at the end of the 5 levels of Pimsleur Spanish? Also, what kind of level can you expect to reach at the end of the 5 levels? And what is the time frame that you can expect? What is the time investment that you have to put in to, reach that final level? And finally, I'm also going to talk about the Pimsleur Spanish pricing. How can you get, Pimsleur Spanish for as cheap as possible? Because if you go on the website right now, it's actually pretty expensive. So I'm going to switch here. Any Pimsleur course actually is pretty expensive. Here it's Pimsleur German, but if you go to languages, even with the 25% discount, I'm going to go to Spanish. And, by the way, there are 2 versions here, Latin American Spanish and just, Spanish. I'm going to go to Latin American. And you will see that the pricing is actually, it's really, really expensive. Although I would say that even at this price point, it would be worth it. You have 25% off, but you'll see here, 5 levels, $575. It's pretty, standard for 5 levels of Pimsleur. I'm going to show you how you can actually get that for a lot less money. But first, I want to talk about, is it worth it? And, what the time investment is. So Pimsleur is actually pretty exceptional because, in my opinion, it's definitely something that you can use, from absolute beginner up to, say, an intermediate level where you can have fluent conversations with native speakers. And, if you complete the 5 levels, that is. And I'm going to tell you the reasons why. And I'm going to get into more like what kind of level you can reach a little bit later in this video. But essentially, there are 3 reasons why Pimsleur Spanish is so effective, and any Pimsleur product. First of all, Pimsleur is based around a principle called spaced repetition. And as you can see here, spaced repetition is a scientific principle that says that essentially, an information that you learn. So let's say a phrase in Spanish or a vocabulary item in Spanish or, a grammar rule or anything like that. It's very likely that you're going to forget it, and pretty quickly too. So if you learn something on day 1 here, you learn something, that's how it's going to go. You're going to forget most of that information. I'm sure you've had that experience. You learn something in school, and if you don't review it regularly, then it just fades. With most language learning methods, that's how it goes. You just forget about stuff. You think like you're learning a lot of stuff, but actually you're just a leaking bucket of information. You forget most of the information. With Pimsleur, it's organized in such a way that you have daily lessons, and each lesson is going to have content at a strategic point in time that allows you to review the content that was learned in previous lessons. So if you learn a phrase on day 1, you start to forget it, and then the next day you're going to review it. And then, boom, you start to forget it again, but notice that you're not forgetting it at the same rate. The curve is much flatter here. And then, on day 4, let's say, boom, you review it again, and so on. So you review it multiple times until the forgetting curve gets flatter and flatter. And what that means is that when you learn something in Pimsleur, in the 5 levels of Pimsleur and the 5 months of Pimsleur Spanish, you're going to retain that information very, very well because of that principle called spaced repetition. It's a pretty solid principle in language learning and, just learning anything in general. So you have very good long-term retention of, anything that you learn in Pimsleur, and this is pretty powerful. And the second reason why it's very, very effective compared to most, language learning programs is because boom, it's audio based. So you can use Pimsler on your computer, you can use it on your tablet, on your phone, and apparently on Alexa as well. I mean, I don't have an Alexa, so I don't know how it works. But if you have it on your phone and they show you a bunch of screens here, and you have flashcards and a bunch of exercises, but really the bulk of the Pimsler program, the main content, the thing that I do and I just ignore all the rest is the audio lesson. So you get one audio lesson per day, so it's 30 minutes for 30 minutes a day. Each level is 30 lessons, so it's 30 minutes a day for 5 months, and then you're done with the 5 levels. So all you need to do is take your smartphone and download your daily lesson, and you can just listen to it while you're commuting, while you're working out, and so on. That's basically it. You don't need to sit down and study something that's super boring and do exercises. I mean, let's face it, like the reason why most people fail at learning a language is because they don't make the time, or they just don't have time to actually sit down and study. But with Pimsler, you don't need to do this. You can just, take Pimsler and take it with you, and it just fits right into your life. So that's a big plus, because you can do the entire program just like that, never sitting down. And not a lot, I mean, I don't know of any program that is actually like that, 100% audio. All right, and so the last reason why I think that Pimsler is super effective and a lot better than most Spanish language programs out there is because it actually prompts you to participate in the lessons. So each lesson is going to be based around a dialogue in Spanish between two Spanish speakers. And what this is, you're not just going to be listening to them talking, you're also going to have an English speaker who is going to prompt you to participate. So, someone is going to say something in Spanish, and then the guy is going to tell you, like, okay, how do you respond to this? Or how do you say this in Spanish? Do you remember how to say this in this way? And so because you're participating, it allows you to engrave the information so much better, because you're doing recall, and recall is very, very powerful. When you compare the depth of mental processing between recognition and recall, recognition being just, you're listening to something or you're reading something, you're just recognizing, recognition is not very powerful. You can recognize something and forget it, in the future. But if you can recall something from your mind, you make an effort and you're like, okay, how do I say this in Spanish? This information is going to be processed much deeper in your mind, making for better, you just remember it better and you remember it longer. And so this, in combination with spaced repetition, makes it so that most of the information, 90% of the information in Pimsler, even months after you're done with the program, you're going to remember it. And so it's a huge, huge advantage. In my opinion, no program makes it does a better job of having a long-term retention than Pimsler. All right, so now I want to talk about what kind of level you can expect to reach at the end of the 5 levels of Pimsler Spanish. So there has been some criticism apparently saying that Pimsler is not really good as far as vocabulary, and vocabulary is really the key component of any language learning program. So here, for example, this is not the only thread on Reddit, but it says, how in depth does Pimsler go with vocabulary? And then the answer, the top answer is, Pimsler won't help a lot with vocabulary. It will, however, help a lot on pronunciation and conjugations automatism. So basically the point here is that there is this idea, someone keeps pushing this narrative that Pimsler is not good at teaching people vocabulary. And in my experience, this is really not true, because Pimsler actually exposes you to about the same amount of vocabulary as, say, a standard Spanish textbook or another language learning program. But the advantage is that because you're using spaced repetition and because you're using recall, you're going to remember 90% of that information in the long term. Unlike a textbook where you just open the textbook and you do the exercises maybe, and you remember the words, but not all of them, and it's only for a few days or a few weeks, and you forget them a lot faster. You're like a leaking bucket of information. With Pimsleur, you're going to remember all of those words. And so as far as the number of words that you can expect to learn, with Pimsleur Spanish, you have 5 levels, and each level is going to be about 300 to 500 new vocabulary items. If you cut the apple in half, it's about 400 new words. So 400 times 5 levels, it's 2,000 words in total. So you're going to know about 2,000 words at the end of the 5 levels. 2,000 words is about a B1 level using the European framework for language proficiency, and it's a level at which you can have fluent conversations with native speakers of Spanish, no problem. You're not going to be able to talk about politics, talk about scientific stuff, okay? But you're going to be able to have conversations, okay? There's no doubt about this. All right, so now lastly, let's talk about pricing, because I feel like if you go on the Pimsler website, it's pretty scary. Pimsler Spanish for the 5 levels, $575. It's a lot of money. So actually, there is a page, there's an option, a subscription plan that is not advertised on the Pimsler website that you can use to get Pimsler for about $20 a month. So you can get Pimsler Spanish, and you're only going to pay $20 a month. I've included a link in the description of this video, which is going to lead you to a page that is not advertised on the Pimsler website. That is going to enable you to create a free account, and you can try out Pimsler Spanish, the first lesson, for free, and decide for yourself whether you like it or not. And after that, you're actually going to be able to pay only $20 for a monthly subscription. For Pimsler Spanish, it's going to be 5 levels, and so 5 months, and you can expect to pay 5 times $20, so it's $100. In addition to that, you also have the option of paying $1 more per month, so it's $21, I think, and you will have access to the entire library of languages. So all of the languages, Pimsler Spanish, German, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, whatever you want to learn, you will have access to all of this for just $1 more. So check out the link in the description, and this is going to be a lot less expensive than the $575. All right, so I think I made my point for Pimsler Spanish. Let me know if you actually finished the program. I really want to hear back from you, and I'll see you in the next video.